Right. I think we can start. So we have the numbers have increased a bit, so we have some more participants. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to the EdTech and Artificial Intelligence webinar that is hosted by the Center for the Study of the Economies of Africa, CC as an acronym, and the Gender and Responsible Artificial Intelligence Network, GRAIN. And so by way of introduction, CC is an independent non-profit research think tank that undertakes quality evidence-based research, analysis, and coordinates policy dialogue among stakeholders, people from the private sector, government, and National Assembly, as well as civil society. CC is also involved in capacity building with the goal of fostering rapid economic growth and alleviating poverty in Africa. CC is located in Abuja, so that's where we're currently, myself and Dr. Deji, that's where we're currently joining you from. However, CC's work is regional across several African countries. So for those who don't know Abuja, I don't know if I mentioned Nigeria, Abuja, Nigeria, but that's it. And then the GRAIN Network is an initiative, or I would say a consortium of 3 think tanks, including the Initiative Prospective Agricole et Rural, IPA, for short, and Sunbird AI, as well as CC. So there are 3 organizations involved. And as a consortium, we're concerned with gender and other exclusionary factors linked to the sub-Saharan African context. We act, that is the 3 organizations, we act with a focus on the intersectionality and responsible AI policy. Our network addresses the cross-cutting issues of AI and gender. So in terms of GRAIN's aim, the aim is to learn, share, advocate, propose solutions to the cross-cutting issues of AI. I've mentioned gender equality and also development. So we try to establish a link between development of artificial intelligence and gender equality. Our scope is sub-Saharan Africa with medium-term work focused on gender and inclusion and longer-term work on equality and gender. We've done some projects together and we're still doing more projects. So about this webinar, for those who have graciously joined us, we know that EdTech represents a powerful tool for transforming educational systems, particularly in Africa, where access to quality education remains a challenge for many. The integration of AI into education technology solutions can further enhance personalized learning, resource allocation, and inclusivity. So the aim of this webinar is to gather experts, some of our panelists are here, educators, policymakers, innovators, so that we can discuss the future of EdTech in Africa with a focus on its potential to empower women and underserved communities. So the primary objectives for this webinar, we would explore the role of AI in EdTech. We'll discuss how AI-driven tools can transform education, delivery, accessibility, and equity in Africa. We'll try to promote gender inclusion by identifying opportunities for EdTech and AI to reduce gender gaps in education and empower women and girls. So we're going to also try to showcase innovative EdTech solutions. So some of our panelists have innovations in place that support education technology, some artificial intelligence as well. So we'll highlight case studies and examples of successful EdTech projects in Africa, particularly those focused on empowering marginalized communities. And then we'll try to engage as many stakeholders as possible. We are hoping that this conversation will continue. We hope that there'll be more discussions around this so that we can know how we can understand how to scale AI or how to apply AI in a responsible manner. So that's it. Then for introduction of the speakers, I must apologize on behalf of Mr. Gilbert. He has a leadership training, but he'll be joining us shortly. So I'll pause with his introduction until he joins us and he's about to speak. I think I'll take the honors first. My name is Uche Anyamele. I lead the Data Governance and Artificial Intelligence workstream at CC. My expertise is in international trade law, AI governance and ethics, digital law, broadly speaking, and then the AFCFTA, so African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. I'll be moderating this session today, and I'm looking forward to an engaging and stimulating discussion. As for I'll start with my colleagues. So I'll start with our director, Dr. Adedeji Adeniran, who is the keynote speaker. He's a development economist with expertise in human capital, economics of tobacco control, poverty analysis, and fiscal policy analysis. He holds a PhD in economics from the University of Witwatersrand, South Africa, and has over 12 years of experience in research, policy dialogue, and strategy formulation. Dr. Deji also holds a master's and bachelor's degree in economics and educational management, economics from the University of Ibadan, Nigeria. Currently, as the Director of Research at the Center of the Study of the Economies of Africa, that is CSEA, Dr. Adedeji leads key economic research initiatives focused on addressing sustainable development challenges across Africa. Welcome, Dr. Deji. We're looking forward to your keynote address. Then our panelists, I'll start with Dr. Juliet Mosso. We've interacted a bit via email. She's a lecturer at Dedan Kimathi University of Technology, Kenya. Her interests are on gender disparity in STEM education, how academic institutions can create pathways for women to enter and thrive in STEM careers, and the role of early education in shaping girls' interest in STEM. She's also interested in responsible AI and ethics. So Ms. Freda Ayanwu is the country director of Global AI Council in Nigeria. Freda is also the visionary founder of EBH Africa, a Pan-African entrepreneurship hub. Freda champions youth and women empowerment and economic growth through innovative enterprise development and entrepreneurship education, impacting over 4,000 entrepreneurs across 10 countries globally. Ms. Marita Adhiambo is a digital program officer at Dignitas. It's a nonprofit organization focused on teacher professional development. Her work is centered on using AI innovative digital tools to enhance teacher training, to improve student learning outcomes, and promote equitable access to quality education. In her current role, Ms. Adhiambo also leads exploratory discussions on integrating AI into Dignitas's training and coaching toolkit, Lead Now, to further enhance personalized learning experiences for teachers. She also collaborates on expanding Dignitas's impact across regions, curating pathways that allow technology to bridge gaps on skills development, gender inclusion, and access for marginalized community. And our very own Mr. Damilari Ajayi, he's the learning technologies researcher and the founder and executive director at LearnTech Initiative, which also aims to revolutionize education in Africa. And so these are all our panelists until Mr. Gilbert joins us. And to close the session will be Ndenye Fatu Mbob, who will give the closing remarks. She's the Chief Executive Officer and founder of the Smart Granary. She's also the project manager in innovation and ICT at IPAR. Ndenye has been excellent, and for those of us, and Dr. Deji can testify to this, in managing and coordinating the communications preceding this webinar. So thank you very much for this, Ndenye. I think with this, we can start, but just a few housekeeping. We aim for the webinar to last no more than 2 hours. We have allocated about 1 hour, 30 minutes for panel discussions and questions for the esteemed audience. For our esteemed audience, please type your questions on the chat with the particular panelist you wish to direct the question to, and we'll pick it up from there. So we'll start our first session now. Panelists, please note that you have about 4 minutes for each question. We'll remind you on the chat when you have about 1 minute left. So welcome. We have a good turnout, and we're looking forward to this conversation. Thank you, everyone. I'll hand over now first to Dr. Deji so that he can, enter us into the session with his keynote address. Dr. Deji.
Okay, thanks so much, Dr. Ochena. And I won't call my presentation it's not a keynote, it's more of really setting the scene for a wonderful conversation that I think I'm keen to also learn from, I'm keen to listen to. Why is this very important today? First of all, Green Network. Green Network has been really working over the last 3 years around issues connecting gender and AI. We all know that, AI it's really has been advocated, and everybody see the changes it's making in the labor market and in many spheres of life. It will also make changes in many other aspects of things, but we need to actually really deliberately engage with it, and that's actually the reason why Green Network, it's a team of many organizations. I think Dr. Juliet Mosso, also a member of Green. So what we do essentially agree is actually to really bring a kind of forum for conversation of how AI and gender issue intersect. And the intersection covers many aspects, including education, which is the focus of discussion this morning. So, I mean, the first point I want to make is, I mean, technology has always been really hard as a way to really revolutionize education. I will recall I was reading a very good analysis recently in 1922 when Thomas Edison invented motion picture that brought about television. And I mean, when they were advertising this, one of the great things that Edison said was that this would revolutionize education because it will really be a tool that will be in every classroom and that would remove and eliminate inefficient teachers with experts that we can actually directly engage with. But we all know that technology, I mean, television didn't really, I mean, it made its impact, but it didn't really change everything. We still have learning crisis. We still have problem of access. We still have the problem of how do we really make sure that teachers and technology works together for effective learning outcome. That problem has not been solved. All technology has always been really promoted as a way to really solve this problem. But we have not solved the problem. And so AI is also the new technology that has come about. And the messaging has always been the same around the fact that it will change the way we learn. It will make personalized learning also come on board. I mean, the point of my introduction is not to say that it won't make any impact, because every of this technology has, in one way or the other, make their impact. However, none has revolutionized education. But what we also know from all of this technology is the fact that technology has the problem of creating inequality in different dimensions. And that has always been one thing that you would always get from technology. For example, there's something in the chief economics at Google, Van Varian. There's a very famous quote that have come to be called Varian rule. And the rule is that if you look at the whole gamut of technology, or luxuries per se, the way things move is that luxury is always available. Like, for example, technology, the best of the technology, first available to the rich. In the next 10 years, it's available to the middle class. And in another 10 years, it's available to the poor, which means there's a kind of 20 years gap between when what we get gets to the poor. And that 20 years gap accumulates over time into maybe outcomes in learning, outcomes in life outcomes, in labor markets. Then the question is, as we are here today, what kind of future do we want in terms of this new emerging technology, AI? Should we follow the normal variant rule, whereby access and inclusion issue is very important? If we look at the current data and statistics, I think it clearly shows that AI can actually lead to such a problem. For example, when you look at in the data on women participation in the labor market, especially around access to these tools, statistics shows that women in low-income countries has 90% less access to technology than men. That's an exclusion factor that would drive a lot of these things. I mean, other statistics, like when you look at STEM, it shows that only 34% of women are in the labor market in most of our developing countries. However, if you look at even, people that were educated in STEM, 34%, but people that are in the labor market are around 24%. So it shows you that women make a very small proportion of this emerging new technology. This has implication in terms of both when we talk about the role of females as role model. If you go to any classrooms today, and I've actually done this informally, we did a research of about 50 schools in Abuja and vicinities. And one of the questions I asked in all the schools I went to, it's who is your computer teacher? And in each of the schools, about 38 of 50 schools have male computer teachers. So in a way, when you talk about the role of female role model, you see the way this has always been crafted. And that has implication as we really evolved and really inculcate technology into different ways of life. Will it be a leveler, or will it be something that will really further compound the problem of inequality like we have it? Also in education, we are in Africa, we are having huge problem of learning crisis. We're seeing this almost everywhere. Of course, learning data shows that male and female are equally non-learning. Even there's slight advantage among girls, but the transition, when it comes to transition from schools into labor market, women tend to face higher barrier. So how do we really use technology as part of this solution, rather than also certain that technology would be the next barrier in this? So my point this morning is actually not to emphasize this negative effect, because we have also seen the benefit of technology in many areas of life. And I want to really emphasize one of those. I'm happy that Dr. Moyo from Kenya could really attest to how much, and many people on this call will also know how technology has helped in financial inclusion, especially when we talk of M-Pesa in East Africa, but also even in West Africa. Financial inclusion in more recent years has been driven by digital innovation, and that has put financial banking and access to financial system in the hand of the poor. And that financial inclusion has found its way in reducing poverty and also solving all sorts of problems in our society. This is part of what we can also think around. Can we also see or recreate this innovation and this development that with how we will use technology to solve the inclusion problem around financial inclusion? Can we also replicate something like this in education? So we have a clear pathway in terms of what I think the quest is. It's either we followed what I've made the case for variant rules, whereby we wait. We think that, okay, it will get to the poor, it just needs to wait. And it needs to wait for 20 years before this benefit actually gets to the poor. But also, we can also have a situation whereby we have perpetual inequality, whereby the inequality between the poor and the rich, between the male and female, it's really, in a way, we just move from one form of inequality to the other. For example, when you move from inequality in school system, when you bridge that one, you can move to another inequality in the labor market. When you close that one, you move to another inequality, even in high-end jobs or even in managerial position. It's either we are moving from one inequality to the other. That's actually a case of perpetual inequality. That's another scenario we can paint. But we can also be the generation or the people that really ask the question, can we really make technology a leveler? Can we use it to solve the problem of education? Can we use it to solve the problem of inclusion? And can we find a way to really address our societal problem using these very viable tools of AI? AI is actually no doubt a game changer. It's a technology that would really change a lot of things. But the way we embraced it is critical, and that's actually what will solve the problem. So what I anticipated to really learn from our esteemed speakers this morning, it's around how some of the solutions that actually are already in the field that are addressing some of these problems on around AI. We can also really interrogate, look at what are the ways we can really design the future in a way that works for us. How do key stakeholders, private sector, donors, and government work together in this emerging landscape to make sure we design the future the way we want, rather than we leave it to forces of market or of entrepreneurship to really define this future. We can define this, we can shape our future with effective policy, but with critical, putting ideas on the table that ensure that digitalization can address the problem and solve the problem of development without really creating and becoming another problem in terms of inequality. And I think that's the quest that is before us. And looking forward to hearing more on this conversation, both from the speakers and also from our esteemed audience joining us in terms of how do we really shape this future going forward. Thank you so much. Happy to be here this morning. Over.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Deji. Thank you so much. This is a fantastic opening remark. You've highlighted a couple of things, and I think that the audience and our panelists understand the point that you're trying to make. And the first one is to kind of think about how digitalization can solve the problem that we have in sub-Saharan Africa without exacerbating inequality. And that is one thing. And you did mention, you mentioned technology and digital innovation, how it helped with financial inclusion, especially in places like Kenya with M-Pesa. So that comparison is critical at this time. So something that I really thought you brought to the fore, which I think is important, and I kept thinking about it as you were speaking, is whether or not technology has really revolutionized education. And so it could be technology that has been in place before AI. And for me, a question which I would like some of our esteemed panelists and some of and the audience to consider is, what does revolution mean in this context? And you drew attention to the fact that there is a 20-year gap. If that closes up, or if the revolution is incremental, is this still considered revolution? Is that still something, or if we're happy to kind of move at a pace that 20 years, will catch up at some time, is that still something that one would consider revolution? Is there revolution? Is there possibility of a revolution with technology like AI? Because even right now, as we're speaking and saying that AI may revolutionize education, the main problem becomes, what about the effects or consequences of artificial intelligence that society has not been able to conceptualize? So what about things that the effects in terms of even mental effects that we're not able to think about? This is something we'd also appreciate our panelists and audience to think about. How do we, in the final analysis, make sure that if AI is able to do certain things or help education, and the consequences of AI, and its speedy revolution does not have negative effect on society, since it cannot be at some level conceptualized to that extent. But thank you so much, Dr. Deji. You've raised very fine points. You've raised points worth thinking about, and stimulating points. We'll go over to the panelists and would like the panelists to kind of factor some of these into the discussions and the questions that they are answering. So we'll start with Ms. Marita, and thank you very much again. So you are a professional with a passion for empowering teachers and improving education delivery through technology. Please tell us a little bit about how Dignitas project is using technology to build learner-centric education systems. So even thinking about in the context of what Dr. Adedeji just spoke about, what are sort of the practical experiences we have?
Thank you, Dr. Uche, for that amazing question. So I'll first start with just giving a brief introduction of who Dignitas is. So Dignitas was founded around 2008 in Mathare, and its focus is on equipping and empowering teachers in marginalized areas or underserved areas to have the strength of character and skills to be able to support a 21st 21st century learner in order to transform the next generation. And we do that by partnering with schools in order to strengthen their leadership and also improve their instructional quality so that they are able to build vibrant schools for children to thrive and succeed. And you asked the question of how do we connect that to learner-centric education? So as you're aware, currently in Kenya, we have a new curriculum called the competency-based curriculum, which is basically centered around learner-centric education. So we, through Dignitas, we are able to support teachers to be able to build the right skills to support a learner under the curriculum by helping them gain skills like critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, communication and collaboration skills. So how have we managed to integrate technology into our training and coaching method? Because we do all this by training and actually coaching teachers so that they develop the right skills and strength of character. So when it comes to technology, our journey actually started around COVID-19. And during COVID-19, we had implemented various ways of integrating technology into our training and coaching method. We used Google Meets at that time and Zoom to train our teachers. And we used WhatsApp as a community of practice. And we used things like chatbot. And then come around 2022, we introduced scenarios-based learning, which we made in collaboration with the University of York. We also introduced a learning management system as a module, and through that, we were able to learn a lot of lessons, which enabled us to build Lead Now. But one of the constant things that remained as we were integrating technology into our training and coaching method is that data is such an important component in everything that we do. So Lead Now was built to be accessible via web and also to be accessible via an app. And the app has an offline capability. And I know the issue of equity has come up. So we do have a lot of teachers in the rural areas. And by our app being offline, we have been able to deliver the same training and coaching method to our teachers through technologies. So Lead Now was built and launched in 2023. And Lead Now is built in a way that it provides individualized, competency-based, goal-oriented, and also data-driven training and coaching to teachers. So currently, it has been used by almost 4,000 teachers in Kenya. And through the reports that we are getting from our teachers is that this has, especially when it comes to learner outcomes, learners currently, after a teacher has gone through the training and coaching in Lead Now, they are reported that their learners have ownership and independence in their learning. Learners have also gained self-esteem and confidence in the classroom. Learners have also gained more skills when it comes to communications and collaboration, and they have developed even the critical thinking skills. So all these are core competencies of our CBC. So all of this in a nutshell is that we have built a technology that is able to support a teacher in this century who is able to support a learner in the 21st century. Dr. Uche?
All right. Okay. Yes, I am here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marita. Thank you so much. So I really did appreciate that you spoke about the offline capability of the innovation and how it helps 4,000 teachers. And that's something that I think is particularly important, that offline capability, just because of the infrastructural needs of Africa or deficits in Africa. I mean, I'm excited for what is going on and what Dignitas is doing. I think that's something that has practical usefulness and is a way that we can also address that inequality in education. So thank you very much. That's our first question. So we'll go to the next question. So before we'll take Dr. Juliet Mosso. So Dr. Juliet, are you with us? Yes. Okay, fantastic. Dr. Juliet, EdTech has the potential of enhancing gender equality in Africa. How can AI technology be used to harness and leverage on those potentials for a seamless transition from STEM program to STEM workforce?
Thank you, Dr. Uche. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay. So thank you for that question. First of all, it's important to understand that there's a gender disparity in STEM fields, where in sub-Saharan Africa, we have, in terms of female enrollment, we have around 20%. That is also enrolled in higher education. And when you look at female students who choose STEM, it's around 30%. And when we look at specifically the engineering graduates, we have them, women are around 20%, and in leadership roles, especially technology sector where I belong, it's at 24%. So these figures are quite small, and there is need to now address the gender equality problem in STEM, because it will, once we address it, we're going to be able to increase the workforce participation, because now when we have more women coming in, we can bring in enhanced creativity, and we can also have some social equity and justice. So given all this, what is the role of EdTech in enhancing the gender equality issue? The first thing that EdTech can do is to give accessibility to quality education, where we can have online learning platforms that are powered by AI, which are personalized using adaptive learning techniques. And this can be able to enhance more people to take STEM and to be able to understand STEM, since it's very intensive. And we can have language and cultural relevance also in these materials, where when we develop the educational content, we have cultural relevance put in it. For example, having it available in local languages using things like language translators, that will make it easier, for example, for girls to engage in the STEM subjects. And also we need to motivate and engage the students by bringing in gamification in AI that will increase their interest and encourage them to continue pursuing the STEM courses, and this can also help us to overcome the stereotypes. And having availability of simulations and virtual labs where students can be able to engage in their practical skills in a controlled environment can enable them to learn more and have a hands-on experience, which is crucial in the STEM field. We can also bring in the intelligent tutoring systems. These are AI-powered systems that can be able to work with the student to give them more support outside the classroom. And here they can have real-time feedback, they can answer questions, they can be able to provide them resources that will help to reinforce their learning. And therefore, they can be able to face the challenges that they can face in the workplace. We can also have, because we have the data that is currently there, historical and the current data, we can use AI to identify barriers that exist. For example, what are the barriers that girls are facing in accessing STEM education? This can be things like socioeconomic factors, they can be cultural norms. And using this data, we can now be able to have targeted interventions. We can also track the progress. For example, we can be able to track progress of students when they join their education, when they join the universities, and how they also progress into the workplace. And we can be able to have data-informed decisions, especially from the policymakers and also from the educators. And in terms of career paths, we can have predictive analytics that are offered by AI, where we can be able to identify the job market gaps that are currently there in terms of skills. And then we can put this now into our curriculums, and also we can be able to feed them back to our students so that they can be able to make good career choices so that they can get their jobs when they get in. So as they transition from the STEM programs to the workforce, we need to have some sorts of skills mapping and training, where once the AI tools identify the skills gaps that exist, then now the educational institutions can adapt this, the requirements into their curriculum, and they're able to produce graduates who are more employable. And we can also tailor their skills development by bringing in the issues that are currently trending, so that we have more job-ready students and they have soft skills where we teach them, we bring in communication skills, leadership skills, and teamwork, so that now when they face the market force, they are able to be employed. We can use AI to do job matching, such that we can help to connect the students, especially those in STEM, with their employers, where we can highlight their skills and potential contributions, have internship and apprenticeship programs running, and having a network and community building program using creating an online network, especially for women in STEM. This will give them support, and they're able to share resources and have collaboration among the female professionals. And then using AI also, we can have awareness campaigns that are targeted, that will enable us to change the narrative and the perception of how women who are in STEM are viewed, and encourage more people to join STEM. And then we can have ambassador programs where companies can also sponsor female students to visit campuses and serve as role models and ambassadors for women pursuing STEM. So at the end of the day, the call for action in terms of this is that we encourage all stakeholders like the government, the educational institutions, and the tech companies to leverage the use of AI to encourage more people to join the STEM field, so that we can be able to mitigate the gender gap that exists in STEM. Thank you, Dr. Uche.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Mosso. That was so enlightening. I do appreciate the various ways, and you've really made it nuanced, that you've shown how AI can be used to really bridge gender gap in STEM. So you know, I often wonder to myself, and I did when you were speaking, just for example, in your country, how many, if there's a rough estimate, or just how interested are women in STEM studies, you know, how many women are genuinely interested? Why do you think that women should really be interested or are not interested, whatever the case is? Just an idea before I then proceed with just one follow-up question, and then we'll go to Dr. Deji.
Thank you, Uche. Now, for the women who are interested in STEM, we did an analysis for like a 5-year trend analysis since 2019 to 2023, and the highest percentage of women that we got was around 29.7%. Those are the ones who actually were interested and enrolled in STEM in the public universities. So the figure is still very small. But the main issues that we identified were things like stereotypes, where the way girls are trained, they are more aligned to business and arts and social studies. And people do not, they see like some of these STEM courses are supposed to be for men. So there's a disconnect between how they are being coached in high school, for example, to join the STEM courses. But the good thing is, like in Kenya right now, we have the competency-based curriculum, which molds them from preschool into STEM. So we are expecting, for example, because the first group is going to be transitioning to high school next year, then now we can be able to do the analysis and see, do we have an increase in the number of students who actually, the female students who join STEM? So by end of next year, we can be able now to compare and see if we have more than 30%.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much, Dr. That's just that's a brilliant way to assess, especially from kindergarten, to assess whether who will be interested in STEM, and then to gauge the percentage, whether it increases or not, and to start at that early point. I think that's important to counter kind of stereotypes and cultural biases, you know, for women. Thank you very much. I think we'll still have questions from the audience, but we'll go to we'll just go briefly to Dr. Deji so that he can speak to us briefly about just AI and the question that we asked, just whether, Dr. Deji, my question, and just for the audience, is whether, considering the way that technology evolves, it takes some time. So even if you look at the internet, things like Google, when you consider AI, and when you say, and I draw back to your statement, you say no technology has really revolutionized education in that sense. I wanted you to please expand a little bit on it. So can revolution be something that is incremental or slow-paced, or do we need to expect something that is kind of fast and quick and, you know, immediate, in the context of I think, traditional definition of revolution, you know, and knowing the challenges we have in Africa with infrastructure and, you know, policy and things like that.
Thank you. I mean, without sounding like a like a tech pessimist, which I'm not, it's important. I mean, I think you clarify some of the points. We've not seen a revolution, but we have only seen an evolution. And I think maybe we can settle for that and agree that maybe that's what it will be. Teachers are irreplaceable.
Yeah.
That's one hypothesis I have. We can't always replace the teachers because, in essence, I've asked many people that have started online program and asked them, why don't you finish? I mean, those are free, those are technology, those are many things. How many people actually really start this online program and finish it? Even though it's free, even though it's tech, it really just tells you that sometimes school system and teachers play a role in not just teaching, but as in motivating us. I mean, so sometimes, I mean, we all experience of maybe not wanting to read, but having this kind of being encouraged by teacher really to really take next steps. And I think that will always be the case. So I think it's better we really know what technology could do for us. But my other point is the fact that technology is already in the education sector, but the problem is it's also accessible mostly sometimes to the high end or to the rich settings, whereby it's not really. I can give example of Nigeria. If you go to many of these top schools, they already have technology incorporated into a lot of their activities, whether in student data sets, whereby it passes through some technological stuff such that we can better manage the data set and really track and really see the learning trajectory and use that in order. I mean, very few use it, but I mean, it's easier when you have a learning trajectory to really target learning and see what you can do. These are how what technology has already been doing. The problem is where we need technology most, it's not there. Those are maybe rural areas, public schools. These are places whereby if you look at learning deficiency, it's higher. If you look at the issue of, if we want to really address the access problem, it's not this high-end school that this access, people that are not in school will go to. It is the public school they will go to. It is the low-cost private school that they will go to. But those are also the schools where you hardly find technology really making any impact. So in a way, I think it just shows you that the problem of education is about really teacher development and really finding the right technology for this set of places like that I've mentioned, low cost, private school and public school. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Deji. Thank you for that clarification. I did not think of evolution, but I'm so glad you said evolution, and we can agree on that. And it's kind of more, for me, it is a way to think about it in terms of gradually evolving as opposed to that instant sort of revolution. So thank you. I think a key word for me as I leave the seminar is technology evolution and things like that. Then I do appreciate the point. I really think it's a strong point that you've asked people why haven't they finished free courses, and people have said they maybe don't have any real answer, but that draws attention to the importance the importance of a teacher or somebody who motivates you to go the extra mile, and that speaks to who we are as human beings and needing another person, that sort of interdependence to kind of drive us to achieve more in life. And then again, a strong point here is that technology is needed in rural areas, and it's not there. So we may find technology in places where, I'll come to you, Ms. Marita, in a second, technology in places where people are privileged, but that's not the point. But I do want to just throw this in, that a question for me is then, how can, in those rural areas, how can the private sector and government, and we'll come to this question to one of the panelists at some point, how can they work together to maybe be able to disseminate technology in underrepresented areas, whilst at the same time ensuring that there's some profit, I say this carefully, for education technology innovators, and we have some of them here. So for that, just on that, I thank you so much, Dr. Deji. Marita has something to say. Would you like to say something there, Marita? I saw your hand up.
Yes, Dr. Ajayi. I think I just wanted to add a little bit on what Dr. Adedeji had said. On what he was saying was that also we can consider things like digital literacy among teachers, because when you are implementing a digital solution in an area, let's look at even the ages, maybe an older teacher and maybe a younger teacher, the adoption will be quite different. And when it comes to digital literacy, we can also consider things like the existing maybe also issues like eyesight problem and all of that. And also we can look at maybe infrastructure in a certain area when it comes to people completing an online course. Perhaps there aren't infrastructures to support that either a teacher or even person to complete an online course. And there's also there's the whole human-centered part of teacher motivation, but there's also the other part of user responsibility. Things like intrinsic motivation and such. So this can also be contributions to online, perhaps people not completing their courses or modules. Back to you, Dr. Uche.
Yes. Thank you, Marita. Yes, thank you for balancing that out nicely. So we've talked about user responsibility as well as human, teacher motivation or human motivation, and that is something that is important. So it cannot be the teacher or the motivation being the only thing, and there is also the responsibility and the motivation, inherent motivation that lies with the user or the person that is taking the course. Thank you so much for adding that. Sorry, we'll go to Freda now. I don't know if Freda is here.
Yes,
Freda,
I am.
Thank you. Welcome. It's lovely for you to join us, and thank you very much, Freda. Welcome to the seminar. Drawing from your experience as an EdTech entrepreneur and an advocate for AI's transformative role in development, what are some of the key lessons you've learned from past EdTech projects or programs that have successfully improved access to quality education and learning outcomes?
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, thank you for having me. I've been learning a lot just listening to everyone. So I would say that, first of all, our educational sector here in Africa is dynamic, and it's very different from, the content that we get from the West and from countries outside of Africa. And so one key thing that has helped educators, especially with my work with educators, is to, promote our African content, because the way our learners learn here is very different. We learn, many of us grew up in rural areas, or many of us grew up with parents who grew up in rural areas or urban areas, or at some point the infusion of learning about your immediate environment also contributes to how you're learning mathematics, or even how you're learning chemistry, and how you're even learning physics. I remember that growing up, we used to infuse, some day-to-day realistic activities into how we're learning. And so it was interesting for some of us who were learners, who could, think of, oh, this was what happened during the week, and I can relate it to how I'm learning in the classroom. And that's one thing that we're trying to work with educators on, to see how we can, promote more localized content. And how are we going to be doing that is to use our AI tools to now create a streamlined method or a streamlined procedure where our local content can be, broken down into bits and given to learners to, assimilate. Now, in a classroom where you have about 20 people, 30 people, and one teacher is going to teach 30 of those kids or 30 of those students to ensure that they all grasp the same knowledge, you will be shocked to know that the kids don't even learn at the same pace. they learn at different pace. So for people who are visual learners, or people who are they learn using just recalling what they listen to, or things that they participate in, it's very important. And that's a key or fundamental way to be able to, carry students along. And then ensuring that our educators also are aware of the kind of content around them that they can use to improve teaching. And then another thing that we've used in promoting education here is a supportive network. One thing that we championed when we launched the AI Educators Lab at the Global AI Council is creating a supportive network. Now, we've figured out that the people who are in this network can actually help themselves. So there's that peer-to-peer learning that goes on within the Educators Lab, where an educator is telling them, oh, I learned this using AI, or I was creating my lesson plans or my lesson notes using this AI tool. And then another educator is taking it up and they're improving on it. So aside the fact that we talk about government, we talk about private institutions supporting educators, we also need to create that avenue where educators themselves can also, think creatively, co-create opportunities for themselves. And that's one way of, championing that. Then another thing is AI is changing the future of work. And so we also have to think about, educators future-proofing their careers. Dr. Adedeji said something when he mentioned why students are not, some people get access to these free courses, but they don't even complete it. It's because as much as we like to say that there will be virtual classrooms, the role of the teacher cannot be replaced by artificial intelligence. No matter how much we say, oh, there'll be virtual reality, we'll have students now taking classes from wherever in the world. If that teacher is not, actively engaging the students, or even, giving that sort of motivation, ensuring that, they can participate in the classes, then it is as good as boring. I would like to use the word, because most students just fall off once it's half the class, they're gone. You cannot be able to bring them back. They're like, you've lost them. And so ensuring that teachers have the opportunities to future-proof their career, providing them practical skills. It's not enough to just be a teacher. You can be a dynamic teacher. You can improve your leadership skills in the classroom. You can improve your curriculum development skills. You can use your knowledge on technology to enhance how you deliver, learning methods, or how you deliver the classroom sector. So if you are a teacher, you're even teaching virtually, there's a way you can, take the attention of the students so that it's focused on you and you don't lose them at any point. And that's a good way we can be able to improve how education will transition, with AI changing our world, AI changing the work and every other thing. And then another thing that we would see, or we are already experiencing, is the data and feedback. So prior to now, educators or classroom teachers just used to have the number of attendants in their classes. But what will happen now is we would see lots of educators understanding how their students learn, understanding, how their students are taking up the knowledge that they are providing to them. So it's important that we start incorporating these AI tools. It's important that, education, while education is transitioning, our educators are also, evolving around it as well. So these are the things that, we would see, like I mentioned, data on learners' progress. Even in the case of virtual classrooms, there are times where we can see that, oh, a learner dropped off at maybe module 1, and you can tell, oh, at what point did they drop off? At what, finding feedback from the learner and saying, how can we support you to, continue your learning process? And how can you find an educator who is focused on ensuring that all the students in her classroom can learn together, whether they are people with disabilities, whether they are people who have learning impairments, or they are people who are even fast learners in their class, bringing all of them together to learn the same content and in the same method will help educators, understand the classroom itself, whether virtual or physical. So yeah, I think that's what my thoughts are.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Freda. So I've seen that a big part of what you've said, you've looked at this from the perspective of the educators, and that's a really good perspective to have. Because so I think a lot of times, many of us think about the people who are learning, and that's important anyway because the people are more. But some really key points here for me is how educators can use the feedback that they get through data, that is gotten from AI, to measure how their students are progressing, and how their students learn, and then factoring how they can help the students either complete the module or complete the course. And something that I really like is the idea of teachers co-creating opportunities amongst themselves, having that supportive network. If I've done this using AI, then you can replicate it in your own classroom, and that's something I find very interesting. And then you've talked about the difference between the African context and other countries, and that is important. Although I do want to press this a bit more, perhaps towards the end, you can give us some examples of difference in what you mean by localized content. I kept trying to think, for example, does that mean that I don't have to use a British curriculum, and that was years ago? Is that what that means? So I'd like a bit more understanding of that, but at a later time. So thank you very much. And again, you emphasize this point, and it keeps coming through, that the role of teachers cannot be replaced by AI. So as a lawyer, interestingly, so I am a lawyer, in corporate governance, there is an insistence that AI human oversight is important. So you cannot abdicate responsibility to AI and say, oh, we just gave this to AI in the board, board of directors with things that you want AI to do. You can't say, oh, we left it to AI and AI did it, therefore we're not responsible. And then we do know that there's a case between Canada Air and I forget the man's name, where a man sued Canada Air because their chatbots gave him the wrong advice. And Canada Air, I think they tried to argue that they are not responsible for the advice that the chatbot gave, and the court held that wasn't the case. So I mean that what you're saying again is just that complementarity between human beings and AI. So not leaving the whole work to AI or whatever it is to AI, but also finding ways that AI can complement teachers' efforts. So thank you very much, Freda. That was really a good way to think about this. And we'll go to Dami, and Damilari is here. And thank you, Dami, for joining us. So part of the ways that AI can have a positive impact is where it is scaled. Can you please talk to us about how AI can be scaled in Africa, as well as the challenges or risks of scaling? I'm just saying, given your background as an innovator in education technology.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Uche, and I'm so honored to be here and among thought leaders to learn and also share insights on AI and the future of education when it comes to inclusion, equity, accessibility, and the others, and even gender. So to start this conversation, I think I really love what Dr. Adedeji started the keynote with, and that's kind of the reality of integrating technology into education. But when it comes to AI, I think the first thing we need to understand is we really need to understand the definition of artificial intelligence. The generative AI we are using is just like one aspect, a little aspect of artificial intelligence. So it's more of artificial general intelligence. So if I'm to kind of define AI, I would say like when you're creating a program or even a machine that can think or learn and even act in ways that would make our lives even or work much easier to do. And we have various aspects of artificial general intelligence. We have the machine learning, we have the robotics, we have the generative AI, which is kind of what we use more. We have the NLPs, we have the voice automation, we have the computer vision, a lot of that. And then, just to give us kind of some applications of AI, your phone with Face ID captures your face to unlock a device. That is artificial intelligence. It saves you the stress of typing passwords or passcode to access a device. So just scan your face, then you get access. That is artificial intelligence. When you're watching a movie on Netflix, and then after watching 2 or 3 movies, Netflix would kind of suggest, oh, after watching this, do you want to watch this? Based on the data you've given, based on the kind of movies you've seen on this platform, it could kind of generate or predict the kind of movie you might want to watch. So that is artificial intelligence. And also, when you give your on Siri, Alexa, these voice automations, they are artificial intelligence. So this is the context I want us to see AI from is beyond ChatGPT or Claude AI or Poe or all these generative AI we're using. AI is kind of broad and is a technology that is going to be foundation to upcoming technologies. Just like Henry Ford, the way they created vehicle then, if they've never thought of inventing vehicle, I'm sure Tesla or Elon Musk will not have thought of creating electric cars now, or even automated cars now. So that's kind of the foundation. We should know that artificial intelligence is built based on previous technology. So without coding, without computer, we cannot even think of AI now. Now that we have AI, it's going to be foundation to upcoming technologies. So that's being said. And to the question being asked, how can we scale AI for wide adoption? I think the first thing I want us to do is to come in from where Dr. Adedeji kind of stopped. We need to really conduct needs assessments. Why do we really need to adopt AI? I'm an educator, or I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an innovator. Why do I need to include AI in what I do? I've been an entrepreneur for many years, an innovator, but when I venture into research field intensively now, I kind of think more of why things work and then why things might not work based on what we've seen in data, based on the analysis we've done on those kind of data. So we should also think in that context, like, what kind of AI do I want to use in my solution? Or if I kind of wide adoption, what kind of AI, as in African context, in African education, what kind of AI can we kind of impute in our innovative solutions? Do you want to build AI from scratch, or you want to use it as a tool to kind of enhance your learning outcomes? So this needs assessment is really, really important. Sometimes you don't even need to use AI. What you just need could be compensation or reinforcement in your classroom, and you will see the learning track going up. So based on the data we've seen, just like Dr. Adedeji mentioned, that it could take 20 years for that could be the gap between adoption rate of technology from the high class to the lower class. So it's possible. So we should think of first thing we should think of is needs assessment. Why do we need to incorporate this? Why do we need to scale this? Do we need to start with a low tech or mid tech or high tech? Thinking of accessibility, internet barrier, electricity, all these things need to be kind of factored into things we kind of build as innovators or even as policymakers. What kind of policy do we make? Do we solve this kind of problem first before we really integrate AI? That being said, then another way to scale AI or increase the adoption in Africa is a systematic approach. You need to conduct task analysis, like, what are the tasks need to be done? And you need work analysis, performance analysis. How are people performed? How would AI do this better? So you should start thinking from the systematic approach, and that would help scale AI adoption in everything we do. Like I mentioned, AI is kind of bigger than what we think, and it is the foundation of what is to come. So it's better we start building on as Africa so that we'll not be left behind. Because now I was reading an article recently and I discovered that OpenAI is trying to invest like a whoopee of $100 billion just to create a data center. The data center is kind of the place where all these machines, all these programs pick source from. So we are not even there yet. The data we have in Africa is kind of not well structured. I didn't mean when mobile devices were introduced into Africa, that's when we kind of have this kind of knowledge of, oh, let's gather this data. This could help us in the future. Now, US is kind of leveraging on our data. All these technology companies, they are leveraging on African data. Now we have thousands of people now training this machine to learn new things, languages, disciplines, different disciplines. Now, this is what we should have done back then. But now that we have this technology and we are kind of creating policies around data privacy and things like that, I think it is the best time we kind of think of scaling, doing enough needs assessments and putting some systematic approach to what we need to do now. How do we scale this and how best can we make use of this data that we've got in Africa? Now, thinking of the demography we have in Africa, I think as at 2020, 65% of Africans are below 45 years. So that's really affects a lot of things. We should start thinking of being systematic in our approach. And also, part of the risk and challenges that comes with scaling artificial intelligence is the ethical considerations. There's this kind of new research in AI that is called the CSEA, is the social-cultural AI. Now, if we kind of launch this technology in scale, what happens to our social interaction? What happens to the way we see ourselves? Like, won't we prefer to chat with AI than talk to fellow human beings? Those are the kind of risks attached to wide adoption of artificial intelligence. So all these things are really put into consideration.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dami. Thank you. You've for those for our audience, you gave them a good definition of AI and gave good examples. So that was a good way to lay the ground for us to enter into the discussion. You've talked about a systematic approach, and you've referred to what Dr. Deji has said. What do a needs analysis? What do we need first? And that's important. You don't just want to scale something when you don't know how useful or what you need it for when you're not adopting a targeted approach. And you've touched upon the ethical considerations, and I think a big thing is social interaction. Here at CC, we do talk about using AI, encouraging the use of AI, but also one of the things that we're mindful about is kind of giving AI, all of the ability to make the decision for you or to reason, which would then result in some sort of inability to use your brain as critically as you're meant to use it. So thank you. These are really good points, and I would emphasize on a needs analysis first rather than just kind of skidding through. So thank you, Dami, and fantastic. So for our audience, we're still going. We have one more session, but we're on time. I do know that some of our audience have asked some questions. So before we go into the next session, I don't know if Mr. Gilbert has joined us. We would like to, if you have any questions, could you please post them on Q&A? Martin, I know that you have a question. I'm not sure if we're allowed to give access. Martin, if you can type your question, or if you can be allowed to speak, I don't know if the host is still here, so they can allow you. Otherwise, I can read out one of the questions by Daniel Onginjo. He says, a glaring challenge around AI adoption in most rural schools and teachers has always been on attitude. How have panelists encouraged a positive attitude towards AI to promote gender equality in education and increase adoption among employees and/or users? I think, yeah, fantastic question, a positive attitude. I think I'll give this question to Dr. Mosso, if you're still there, and Dr. Juliet, if you're here, and then maybe Marita, maybe you can chip in a little bit on attitude. You have experience with, about 4,000 users. So, Dr. Juliet, please, would you like to touch on this a bit?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Uche. Now, in terms of attitude, I think first of all we need to look at the kind of systems that are being done, or what is coming out, because, like, for example, we need to have inclusive AI educational content that is there, which is gender neutral, so that we can be able to curb the issues that are there. And we can also look at bias, because there's gender bias that comes with AI, and it also comes with when we're having the algorithms that are being used in AI. So we have to handle the bias that is there. And in terms of making it understandable for the people who are in the local areas, we need to bring it down. For example, coming up with tools, we look at low-cost AI tools that are easier to be implemented, especially in places where we have things like issues with power. We have things like low economic power, so they cannot be able to afford, let's, for example, say smartphones. So we have to look at things that can operate in a low-cost manner and that are also localized in terms of language and culture, and that they also respect the people's culture. So they have ethics to be put in place, because some of the things driving people out of some of the tools we have in AI is that they are going against their culture, what they believe in. So we need to bring issues of ethics also in this development, so that as we localize the solutions to fit the local context, we are also localizing it such that it's able to go with the norms and the beliefs of the region, so that we can have more adoption. And then going down to the level of the people to actually train them, to have like workshops, to have peer learning, to have capacity building, because some of it is out of ignorance, why people might not want to engage in AI. So it's out of ignorance. So we need to have a sort of capacity building where we upskill, like, for example, teachers. We also talk to the parents as well, and we talk to the community as well, in a way that they will be able to understand and make it as simple as possible, so that it doesn't look like this thing that it is a mystery to them, but we make it look very local such that they're able to understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mosso. Thank you so much. Yes, and I do agree with you that ignorance plays a role, a huge role. So making it understandable and tailoring it to local context and making it localized can help with a better attitude. And what people understand generally, they'll be more receptive to. And that is just human nature. If I don't understand what you're bringing to me, I would be averse to it. Yes. So thank you. That's a key point. And then Marita, please, do you have anything to add briefly?
Okay, I'll say one of the things that perhaps can lead to either a negative attitude, especially when it comes to AI adoption, or maybe to do tasks, or even just in tools, will be fear of technology. So there is the misconception of AI will replace teachers. So when a teacher hears that, definitely they will be like, I don't want to use this thing that will eventually replace me. So there is definitely need to sensitize teachers more, and also to show them how to AI sensitive in a sensible manner. And there's also the issue of digital literacy. Do teachers know how to use AI, or are we just assuming it's there, we have mentioned it, so they're supposed to know? So perhaps they don't know how to use AI, and AI is really broad. It's really broad. And when we talk about AI in education, most of the time, as it is, you'll find it's being utilized in doing administrative tasks, building a lesson plan, more than adaptation in teaching and learning. So there's also the need to look at that. And also, let's look at why the negative attitude, which can trickle down from the government itself to teachers. Because one of the challenges when it comes to AI adoption is the risk of skills neglecting. And it's a valid challenge, or a valid worry from the government, and even maybe leadership in the education system, that will trickle down to teachers, that if your teachers use AI, it means they won't be able to teach. So how can we sensitize either the government more, or how can we sensitize teachers more? And there's also, I mentioned existing misconception. Thank you, Dr. Uche, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Marita. Thank you. I really like how you've come from the educators or teachers' perspective, so that we see that challenge, and then Dr. Moyo handled the learner's perspective. So thank you so much. This is a balanced discussion. We'll go to session 2. I don't know if Martin has asked his question. His hand has been raised. I don't know. Also for Mr. Daniel Ongijo, who asked the question. I don't know if this has answered your question. If you have any more questions, we'll take it again. So as we proceed to the next session, at a regional, so Dr. Juliet, to hand over to you again, at a regional and local level, what do you think the opportunities are for EdTech, like tech AI, to reduce gender gaps in education and empower women and girls? So just from a regional perspective,
yeah. Thank you, Dr. Uche. Looking at it regionally or locally, we can first start with looking at the learning experiences. We start first with the content, because we are trying to reduce gender in education and empower girls and women. So we start first by tailoring our content to their learning styles, because people learn differently. People, the way they understand concepts is different. So we first adapt the content to take in their individual learning styles, so that we can have a more effective content being given to them. And this can also address things like the learning pace, the styles, address barriers that come with which can discourage, for example, girls and women to pursue education in STEM. And then having things called, using AI, we can have what we call asynchronous learning options, that is flexible learning environments that can be able to allow the students to learn on their own and using their own schedule, such that people who have family responsibilities and other commitments can be able to schedule time to be able to learn on their own. So there are learning options that can be brought in. And we can also, when we have the online learning platforms, which can actually be powered and be championed by the EdTech companies, where we have very high quality content, such that somebody who opts to do online learning, even if it is self-paced, they can be able to get the full content like a person who went to a physical class. And it can work very well for people in rural or underserved areas, because as long as you're able to get to access this content, for example, in your mobile phone, because we have very good smartphone penetration. So once you're able to access this content, you can be able to learn at your own pace. You can be able to have assessments there, and you can be able to access the material anytime and anywhere that you're in. And it's also important to bring in networking aspects. By now having the mentorship programs that are running, to have role models who can be able to encourage the students, and having online communities. So you can have digital platforms that are able to connect girls and women in education, so that they can be able to have sharing of resources, they can share experiences, they can encourage each other, and this will build confidence and resilience. And another thing that can also help this networking is to have for hosted events like hackathons. We have conferences, we have workshops, and this can bring the female workforce together with the students and the EdTech companies and their representative. And it can also make visibility for women also come out in the field, because once they start seeing there are people who are in those industries that they're interested in, they might want to join the industries. And it's good also to do upskilling, that is having some targeted skills training, where once we identify the gaps that are there, then now we have targeted training that can be able to boost the competencies of the students, such that they're ready for the job market. And then also, apart from the teaching that we give, it's also important to have EdTech platforms that can be able to offer courses like entrepreneurship, financial literacy. We also have business skills. And this will encourage the girls and the students also to come up with their own ventures and become economically independent, because currently there's a problem with jobs. So you can come up with your own venture and become economically independent. You don't have to rely on being employed once you finish school. And to support the students who are in school, we can have work-study programs, so that students can be learning and also attending work, and they're able to get both the academic and the professional experience. simultaneously at the same time, and then they can get, we can have companies bringing in things like leadership training that can be part of the career development initiative, and they can also be integrated in our academic curriculum. And then having professional development workshops also is going to help to build things like negotiation, the leadership skills, and work-life balance, especially for women who are thriving in male-dominated fields. And we've also talked about the issue of data. So as we keep collecting this data, it's good to also be analyzing it so that we can be able to identify the gaps that are there, either in gender, in terms of gender, in education and the crisis that is there. Then we can have some informed decision-making from the regional and local government level, where we can have now targeted interventions. And then also we can be able to manage the way we allocate resources, and we can monitor the impact of the programs, educational programs, and ensure that we have gender equality. And as we do all this, it's important to also address the cultural and the social barriers, because these are the things that are going to drive people away. So we need to have awareness campaigns that are targeting the specific challenges and stereotypes that we have, especially in girls' education, and identifying the key influencers who can be able to actually go out there and talk to the girls, talk to the parents as well, and then having effective messaging that is going out so that we can kill the societal attitudes and make people more perceptive to the AI and also perceptive to STEM education. Creating safe learning environments, especially online, so that we can have, as students interact, we have features that can promote digital safety. They can report harassment in case there is anything there. Finally, we have partnerships that we have the EdTech companies. They can partner with the NGOs and the local communities and also the educational institutions, so that they can have initiatives that will target specifically maybe girls to enhance to reduce the gender gap in the region, bringing in the local government to create policies that will promote integration now of EdTech in schools, so that we have funding, we have resources, and also training of the educators on how to use AI and also to make use of this AI to make their work more easier. And finally, have innovation hubs where people can go to get cutting-edge technology and be able to do research, and they're able to enhance their skills. Thank you, Dr. Uche.
Thank you so much, Dr. Juliet. Thank you so much. I can tell that you probably have practical experience with all of this, because as you were talking about flexible learning environment for women, women in rural areas, they can have online learning. I kept thinking to myself, the main issue there is, if these women are lonely or kind of going through struggles and they need external motivation, how do they get it? But right as I was thinking about it in my head, you started talking about a network, like having a network and people that they can share resources with, and it will help them build confidence, resilience, visibility. And so I was asking that question, and then you began to talk about it. So that's a really strong point. Sometimes these women are in situations that are not, even though they want to make themselves better, they find themselves in situations that are not conducive to study effectively. So having that kind of network, of people, peer-to-peer network, which you mentioned, is something that can encourage them to continue, build resilience. So thank you for that. You've mentioned a couple of other things, women's safety online. You talked about partnership that can help reduce some in some ways, and you were quite detailed about gender gaps. You talk about addressing cultural and social barriers, that is important, people's background. So thank you very much, Dr. Moye. Thank you so much for that. So we'll now go to Damilari. Back to you again, Dami. 4 minutes. So the guiding principle for achieving SDG 4 is lifelong learning, which encompasses formal, non-formal, and informal learning. What role can AI technologies play to enable personalized learning anytime, anywhere, and potentially for anyone?
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Uche. Well, AI has an incredible role when it comes to SDG 4 and lifelong learning. And AI has this kind of ability to kind of tailor educational contents and resources to each learner's needs. And with the pace of even learning. So it could help kind of tailor it to preferences, even to the ability at which they need to learn. So all these things is what artificial intelligence can actually help to kind of enhance lifelong learning. So when it comes to learning needs, the kind of backgrounds, languages, and when it comes to Africa, we have a lot of languages there. So AI could help us learn in our own context. It could be tailored to our needs and even our various backgrounds. And then when it comes to formal and non-formal or informal education, we could, just like Dr. Juliet mentioned, we could like create some tools that are kind of localized in the content to fit in what we really want people to learn. It could be financial literacy. We could create an AI content on that. It could be maybe in the future of work, how people kind of upgrade professionally, how they kind of move from one non-tech to a tech skill. All these things could be done by AI. And one thing very interesting about how AI could enhance lifelong learning is the kind of open access and open source. Anybody could jump on any AI tool that's kind of open. It gives kind of accessibility. Just have a mobile device, just like Dr. Juliet mentioned that we have the higher kind of impact of mobile devices in Africa. So that means we have access to this kind of information. So it could kind of promote, lifelong learning. And then when it comes to inclusion, so we have some AI gadgets now that could help with visual impaired learners, and also even cater to special needs, like learners with special needs. So we have this kind of tools emerging, like virtual reality, glasses that could help those people that are kind of visually impaired to learn effectively. And there's a term in education, it's called the UDL, the Universal Design Learning. This is kind of a learning context whereby you create what is accessible for all. So in kind of AI could give us that platform. So look at what Meta AI is doing with Facebook, WhatsApp. Once you're on WhatsApp, you can easily, as you chat with your friends, you can easily chat with AI, get direct answers to your questions immediately. So this is a kind of way to kind of promote lifelong learning. As you are chatting, as you're communicating with your friends, you can also learn. So AI has brought this kind of innovative solution to lifelong learning. And there's lastly, I want to talk about adaptive and predictive learning. Adaptive is when you're able to kind of adapt to a way of learning. So AI could help you to adapt to your own learning style and then keep giving suggestions. So when it's not giving suggestion on the next thing you need to do, that's predictive learning. So when you're done with these tasks, AI could be able to, okay, just like Netflix predicts kind of movies you might want to watch next, AI in education could do that. So that's called predictive learning. And I think with this kind of what I've mentioned, AI could really create enhancement when it comes to lifelong learning.
Thank you very much, Dami. Thank you. Yes, I do agree with you that yes, starting with we're creating AI content that is localized, and then AI can also tailor people's learning to their preferences, just because by virtue of data, open access AI. You've mentioned a couple of things. I do want to say thank you, Dami, and that's quite a strong area that you've highlighted. And I do want to say just so that I don't forget, Dami is joining us at the most inconvenient time just because of the time difference. So thank you for that sacrifice. Thank you. I do appreciate it. And we'll go to Freda now. Is Freda still with us? Yes, she is. So Freda, we're just wondering, we expect that AI will provide opportunities to support teachers in their educational and pedagogical responsibilities, human interaction and collaboration between teachers and learners, which remains at the core of education. How can we ensure that teachers are not displaced by machines? And I know that when you were talking the first time, you emphasized on educators and you mentioned it a bit. So it just kind of following on this, how then can we concretely ensure that we don't remove teachers from the whole equation and leave it to AI?
Thank you. That's a very important question. I know I did a session on Saturday and I was speaking on the future of work, and I did highlights the report by the World Economic Forum that says next year, 2025, we'll have 85 million jobs that will be replaced by artificial intelligence. But guess what? If we don't, start emphasizing the role of digital literacy, like one of the speakers has highlighted initially, then we'll be losing out our teachers in the classroom. Yes, there is a significant importance for having our teachers in the classroom, and there's a role that they play in supporting students and learners' journey. And so one of the things that I would say in terms of not replacing teachers and not having them lose their jobs is, let's see AI as an enabler and not as a disruptor. So by the time we see that AI can, instead of replacing the teacher, provide the teacher enough support, like a repetitive task can be automated. Things like creating lesson plans, things like grading students, these things can be done using AI tools. One of the things that we also showed our educators in our AI educators lab are tools that helps them to create lesson plans easily. So they type in their content and they get adequate result. There's an AI startup founder here in Nigeria that is building that focus to support educators. And if we begin to position AI as a teacher's assistant, we will have more teachers who are adapting or adopting these technologies. So one of the speakers earlier mentioned that do teachers really understand what AI is about? And that brings me to my second point, which talks about competency. By the time we start empowering educators and not just leaving it to say, oh, they should know what AI is about because there is a buzz about AI, then we're leaving them to figure it out on their own. Organizations, like the one we're already creating opportunities for them to learn, for them to foster and build their capacity. They can now start supporting learners by thinking creatively and providing learners with more ways to think critically. And this is one of the things that we want to see learners do now, because we all know that as AI is coming up, we have more learners who are now relying on AI to do their assignments, to take on classes for them. But the role of the teacher here is to also be the second eye who is detecting, oh, this student needs another level of support beyond the classroom or even within the classroom. And that just helps us to see that the more we invest in teacher literacy or digital literacy for teachers and educators, it helps them to become productive. Now, the more efficient our teachers will become, the more they can think creatively in supporting learners. Then another way would be to see AI tools that facilitate personalized learning. While it is important that the teacher must know every student in the class or in the classroom, it is important that we also create an opportunity where there is personalized learning. Each student understands their journey, or the teacher understands each learner's journey and can support them leveraging on the tools available to them. And so this still boils down to building capacity and ensuring that our teachers are well invested in so that they can be able to stand in the classroom and deliver and lead. So it's not only about using the tools for even administrative work, it is also leading using those tools. It is also positioning themselves as leaders in the classroom, ensuring that the learners can learn from them, creating and fostering that nurture, that's collaboration between students and the teachers, making sure that, okay, the insights are gotten from the topics. One thing, Dami mentioned something about generative AI. These things are things that other people have fed this chatbot. So if we are using content already fed to these artificial intelligence tools, it is also important that there is a human side to it that says, oh, I'm contributing this part to it. We can't just let all the content be artificial intelligence generated, right? So there's a component that allows the teachers to, influence how they learn. I mentioned earlier about localized content, and I'll just chip in on that. So when we talk about localized content, we talk about how we are using whatever we're in our immediate environment to foster learning, to nurture that learning environment for the learners, right? And then Localized content will focus on, our local culture, our language. There are most cases where a teacher or a learner, maybe you're online and you're taking a course and you see that the person has an accent. And most of our kids cannot even, assimilate that level of accent. But if there's a teacher who is speaking in the same language, who looks like them, it's better to understand from that person most times, nurturing them to say, oh, we are in the same environment. And sometimes that's one of the reasons why many people drop out of those online courses, because by the time you start hearing those, American accents, the English, the grammar, sometimes you're like, please, I want to go and look for my local teacher who can break it down to me to the level I would understand. Now, we're not saying that it is not important for people to, study abroad or take those kind of classes, but sometimes it is important to also infuse our local environment, our local features. There are certain things that you see day to day that you can relate to more than the activities that many people in the West will also, relate to more. And so it's important for us to also, create that environment. Another thing I would like to chip before I go is a collaborative culture where educators can work together. I mentioned it earlier, and then they can also create opportunities for themselves. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Freda. Thank you so much. And you've talked about teachers, positioning themselves as leaders in the classroom using AI tools. And that's important. And so it is definitely important. You're also giving teachers the support they need to learn about AI or to become digitally literate. I think that's also very important. You talked about teachers apart from knowing each of their students, there is a need also to understand how they learn, and that can come from data. And thank you for clarifying on personalized learning. That was a good time to chip it in, and that makes more sense. What I'm familiar with at first, I should start with the familiar and get to the unfamiliar. That makes learning easier rather than being just starting with something that is not familiar. So thank you, Freda, and thank you so much. These are good points that you've raised. And we'll come to Marita, who will be answering the last questions before we open it up for further questions. So Marita, most of the EdTech initiatives are being driven by the private sector. However, in order to make the most of AI, we know that government participation is necessary. Can you please speak to us about how the private sector can partner with government to maximize AI in Africa?
Thanks, Dr. Uche. I would really love this conversation, and I'll try to build up from what Freda had talked about. And she was actually sharing best practices of what works in the private sector. So I think one of the things we are realizing, private sector is moving fast compared to how the government is moving. And there's usually that frustration of why can't my either technology or why can't they adapt this? So definitely there is the need for private sector to share with the government, this is what works and this is not, this doesn't work at all. And if we are to ensure that there is improved learning outcomes among learners, let's do this. Let's localize content. Let's ensure that teachers are actually just not using AI, generating a lesson and then stepping into a classroom. So there is need for that, and also just to sensitize the government on the kind of AI that they can use. So one of the ways you realized is when we look at AI in education, majority of AI adoption is based on administrative tasks compared to AI adoption in either teaching and learning. So how can we come together, and this is going to be the second point, co-create solutions with the government so that they are leading these initiatives of this is what has been created. This is great for our teachers, and this is great for a learner, so that the government feel comfortable, they feel involved, and also teachers, which is really important. Not just creating from the level up, co-creating with teachers and then moving up, and then teachers going to the government even and saying, teachers leading initiative in technology and AI and telling the government, we think this works for us. Can this be adapted in the whole education system in Kenya? And then the other thing is there should be a clear information flow, especially from the government. So what are government's priorities? What is government worried about? And I'm sure in different countries, government is worried about different things. In Kenya, for instance, I'll say government is worried about maybe a teacher using AI to generate a lesson or a lesson plan and then walking into a classroom to teach. So like I mentioned, one of the challenges when it comes to AI adoption in technology is the risk of skills neglecting. And when we talk about pedagogy, it usually balances knowledge and skills. So if we have teachers who have knowledge without skills, that's really worrying, of which government is worried about that. And there is the issue of digital divide. Government is worried about that. Already, there's a digital divide with just adoption of the normal technology. So look at AI. Of course, we do have AI-powered platforms that have an offline capability, but we'll say they are still being developed or they are being refined, something like that. But they are not at their full. So we'll have this whole population that does not have access to AI or is not using AI compared to maybe this other population that is using AI. So there'll be a big digital divide. And then also government is worried about basically integration of AI into the existing pedagogy. So like I mentioned, like AI still hasn't been adapted when it comes to teaching and learning. So how can we talk to government and actually either co-create these solutions or also address their concerns, things like the data privacy and protection, and then we also have equity and accessibility, we have transparency and accountability. Those are some of the things that as we are creating these solutions, we need to be able to address. Definitely the priorities are different in each country. And then the other thing is creating a standard procedure. I think there is a research paper that says a learner that goes either to ChatGPT and paste a question there, either a homework question, and it generates an answer compared to a learner who actually uses an AI tutor, the learning outcomes will be really different. There'll be increased learning outcomes on this other learner who uses an AI tutor compared to a learner who just goes to ChatGPT, pastes the question, and gets the answer. So we need to create a standard procedure on how a learner is going to use AI. But most importantly, how can teachers use AI to either teach their learners and such things? So collaborate with the government to create these procedures at a country level, at a regional level, and even at a school level. Back to you, Dr. Uche.
Thank you. Thank you, Marita. Thank you so much. And I agree with you. I mean, I've learned so much from this conversation, and I do think just kind of understanding it, you also think about AI from a personal perspective. I know that you said something that one of the key things that the government is worried about is risk of skills neglect. And that for me, that is something that I worry about as well. I mean, one wants to be able to use their brain critically in every situation. So to be able to quickly generate, there's something almost fraudulent about quickly generating your lesson plan and giving it to the students and saying, yes, this is what you're doing. Whereas the process of thinking about it critically would help you to even tailor something that is better for the students to even become more innovative with teaching. So I do appreciate that point you've raised. I was thinking about it in the context of my own self and whether or not at some point I'm ever really going to use AI for research. You talk about co-creating solutions with government and I think something you mentioned was the private sector can create something and then go to the government and then say, this is something we can do this, or we can test this out, or they have something. And what I thought about in relation to scaling this is an opportunity for how AI can be scaled. So when it's tested on a small level, it can be taken to the government. By that time, the person already has the right to their innovation, and they can take it to government who has more resources, and government can scale it if it has worked in that kind of small setting or tested area. So that's a really good point. Clear information on what government is worried about and how to deal with it is something that is important. And I mean, all around sensitizing the government, on the type of AI things that you've mentioned, the one that is useful to them. Thank you very much, Marita, and thank you so much for this. Thank you, Dami. Thank you, Freda, and Dr. Juliet and Dr. Adedeji. So we have about 12 more minutes, and we can use 5 to 10 minutes to take any more questions from Martin or anybody that has any question with the audience. This has been such an enlightening conversation, enriching for me. And I think Kemi, fantastic. Kemi has a question. Kemi, please go ahead. I don't know if we can allow, if Kemi can speak. I don't know how to enable that. It will be the host that can enable that. Otherwise, Kemi, please, you can ask the question or you can type the question. I'm thinking of how to enable you to speak, but I think Eddie will be in a better position to handle that. I don't know if Chinedu is here. Mr. Chinedu, so Kemi, did you still want to ask the question? We can take it on the Q&A. Martin, did you still want to ask the question? We can also take it on the Q&A. Okay. Ed is providing access to Kemi. Okay, thank you. In the meantime, before Kemi asks, I would also just be wrapping up a bit, just so that we're strictly on time. I do want to start taking out the time to say thank you to all our panelists. Sometimes when you're moderating a session, all you're thinking about is, I hope I catch everything they're saying and I'm able to reflect it properly. But at the same time, your heart is hungry to kind of understand what people are saying and to understand the different contexts, because this is a very important conversation. And I think for me, when I think about kind of my village and people that I know that are struggling, in terms of in my immediate environment, I think about how can I can I use my knowledge of technology or what, the conversations we've had to kind of facilitate their learning. But also, we do want to say, I mean, GRAIN has been fantastic. CC is a part of GRAIN. GRAIN is pushing this, and we're trying to scale. I use the word scale. Dr. Deji is heading this project with GRAIN, and then as you can see, he's knowledgeable in this area. I thank Dr. Juliet. Dr. Juliet, you've been fantastic. Your insights have been just practical, just useful all around, and as I'm thinking of a question, you're already answering it, meaning that you have insight into it. And Marita, your experience, how you also have taken the cue to balance the educator's perspective and user's perspective, same as Freda, has been useful. I did not even think of it from that perspective, so it is good learning for me. And just Dami taking the time to break down little things that people make assumptions that people know about AI or the definition, but him taking the time and walking through and coming to the challenges that one will face in trying to scale AI. I think it's interesting and a very good conversation. But I'll now hand over to Kemi before we speak to Ndenye. Kemi, so please go on.
Okay, thank you very much. There was someone mentioned something about teachers building their own lesson plans, and I wanted to just touch on that based off. Okay, let me give an example. For in Edo State, I'm aware of the reforms that took place there because there was a documentary project that I was on, and from transcribing the documentary interviews, the teachers, talked about, the commissioner at the time talked about how they were able to bring educational reforms in Edo State. I think the Edo Best program, and I know someone mentioned something about the ethical issues with teachers, but I also will say that when the government is involved, it's a multi-stakeholder type of thing. It shouldn't just be looked at in silos. When the government is involved, the government is backing up, this reform. It makes it easier for some of these ethical problems that was mentioned, to be reduced. For example, according to, again, I don't know about the reality, but according to the interviews that I watched, the teachers mentioned that, the Commissioner of Education mentioned that the first step was to collect data. And I heard data collection when I was listening to the webinar. So they used data, ensured that they knew the number of students and teachers that were in the states. And then they also, that was what they now use. And I think they mentioned needs assessment. So in terms of AI as well, I believe that they have the foundational things. When foundational things are put in place, some of the ethical issues with AI will be reduced. I don't think teachers should just come up with their lesson plans. I believe these are things that are already regulated in the states, if we're talking about states, and in the country as a whole. So I wanted to just touch on that, because in terms of the fear of people just coming up with lesson plans on their own, when it is not done in silos, right? When the government is involved, state government is involved in these reforms, also looking at the AI perspective to these reforms to automate repetitive processes, then many of these ethical issues will be reduced. So I wanted to just touch on that. Yeah.
Thank you, Kemi. And I definitely think you've mentioned something really important. Yes, it may be I'm not in education and you have more experience than this. But in fact, Freda, let me hand this over to you before yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, you raised a very important point. There is also the ethical considerations when we talk about, educators or teachers actually, using or leveraging AI. There's one of the things that I'd like to also highlight, in education, there is a rundown on what, lesson plans are and the curriculum. There's already a set curriculum that comes from the Ministry of Education, vetted already. But one of the things that we need to highlight is that it takes teachers maybe hours to create a lesson plan for a particular topic, right? So instead of allowing teachers to spend more time, delivering or creating a lesson plan, there are tools that can help them just simplify the process and make sure that they're not spending all that time documenting, highlighting what the objectives are, what the outcome will be, what the topic would teach the learners. But there are processes that the tools can help them just make it easy for them to now focus more on engaging the learners and deriving that learning outcome from the learners. So when we talk about lesson plans, it's not like teachers would be automatically deriving it from their minds. There's already a set curriculum that the teachers have to follow. What we are talking about, what we highlighted, is also empowering teachers to be efficient, and which means reducing the time they spend on things that are repetitive, and now giving them enough time to be able to focus on creative thinking and problem solving within the classroom and outside the classroom.
Thank you. Thank you, Freda. I'm glad that I referred that question to you. Yes, and thank you very much for that. Yes, and then do we have any more questions? Otherwise, we'd like to give Ndene, our own Ndene, would like to give her some time to just give a closing remark. And Eddie, please, can you give Ndene access to speak? Hello, Ndene, are you here?
Yes.
Yes, fantastic. Yes. Okay.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. So, thank you so much. I think that it is a high-level panel. Thank you all for joining us for this insightful tech webinar hosted by the Grand Network. And I thank so much to CC team for this great achievement. Today's session has highlighted the potential and challenges at the intersection of gender, technology, and education across Africa. We have heard from experts about the need for inclusive and responsible AI solutions that not only support educational advancements, but also promote equitable access to technology for all genders. We hope these discussions have sparked new ideas and collaboration opportunities, paving the way for innovative EdTech solutions that address real-world challenges while upholding the values of inclusivity and accessibility. Together, we have to continue dedication and share our expertise. We can create an educational ecosystem that empowers all learners and educators across the continent. So thank you so much to our brilliant panelists for sharing their expertise, and to each participant for your time and commitment. So let's carry forward the insights from today's session and continue our efforts to make EdTech a powerful tool for sustainable and equitable growth. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ndene. Thank you very much, Ndene. It's lovely to have you close this for us. And again, I'd like to say thank you to the fantastic audience, and they've been here with us all through. Thank you very much. And Marita, it's lovely to meet you and lovely to chat to you. Thank you very much, Freda, for your insights and fantastic conversation. And thank you, Dami. I'm so glad you joined us, and I'm so glad that despite the time difference, you made our time to join us. And thank you very much, Dr. Juliet. Thank you for just practical conversation, the practical suggestions that you made, and we really appreciate it. And for Dr. Deji for just segueing us into the panelist session very nicely with what you've said. And I just wish to say, on behalf of CC, on behalf of GRAIN, we look forward to continuing these discussions. We want to say thank you very much, everyone. Have a fantastic week, and let us know if there's anything you think that we should consider further or anything we did not address. Thank you again. Thank you very much. And bye from all of us now. Bye.